In our previous videos we have shown that Sky F1, led by Martin Brundle, and Channel 4 F1, led by David Coulthard, have been biased towards Max Verstappen and against Sir Lewis Hamilton. This long-standing bias, which had been hiding in plain sight, was masked or overlooked because of Sir Lewis's success to date. However, things came to a head in Abu Dhabi when the final race of the season was openly rigged in favor of Max Verstappen, and the media outlets went to town to defend the outrageous manipulation. Sky F1, who are the official F1 broadcasters, rolled out Martin Brundle.
Very complex matter, so it was so exciting to a wonderful finale to a wonderful Grand Prix season. The safety car situation, and some cars pit, and that means they are then lapped, or the leader pits and unlaps some other cars. So it takes a certain amount of time to work out exactly who the lap runners are, where they are in the pack. But the fundamental point of that rule is to make sure that they don't get in the way of a great duel towards the end of a Grand Prix, and that certainly happened, didn't it?
While Channel 4, the subsidiary broadcaster, rolled out David Coulthard, who is also the official spokesperson for Max Verstappen and Red Bull. The case of Channel 4 was particularly egregious because they are supposed to be a British public service broadcaster, with a parliamentary mandate to promote minority interests.
It's a highly complex sport where you could argue, because of the technology that's involved, it's not a pure sport, where it's not just human endeavor, in its purest form against each other. You've got the performance of the car before the driver even gets in there. So there are so many rules that are constantly being clarified through the course of the season that if anybody follows it closely, you'll know there's always little tweaks to wing structures and technicalities of the cars. The regulations and the sporting regulations are hugely complex as well. And you're absolutely right that the sequence of events of only allowing 5 cars to overtake Lewis before the safety car came in is not something that typically has happened before. But the FIA do have another rule which allows the race director to override that and make the decision he feels is correct. So it comes down to one individual.
Shockingly, there is an even bigger British public service broadcaster that is anti-Hamilton and pro-Verstappen, and that is the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC. The BBC's bias against Hamilton is led by their chief F1 journalist, Andrew Benson. This bias, which runs across the private and public sector, has clear racial undertones. This video will expose the BBC and Andrew Benson's bias against Lewis Hamilton. To put it into context, on a spectrum of anti-Lewis bias, Andrew Benson is Don Altobello in Godfather 3, while Brundle and Coulthard are Joey Zarza. It is easy to see Brundle and Coulthard spewing their bias, while Benson is so sly and cunning that he has deceived many into believing that he is pro-Lewis.
I'd like to take Joey Zaza for a ride in this and drop him.
Joey Zaza is nothing. He's a small-time enforcer. He bluffs, threats, nothing. You'll be able to see him coming a mile away.
Let me.
Who can refuse Don Altobello?
Joey, are you? No! I say to all of you, I have been treated this day with no respect. I've earned you all money. I've made you rich, and I asked for little. Good. You will not give, I'll take. As for Don Corleone, well, he makes it very clear to me today that he is my enemy. You must choose between us.
It's going too far.
Hey, Joey! No, Joey. No, Joey! We could reason together. No. Please, let's agree, huh? He doesn't know what he's... No, come on. Let's go out of here!
However, a review of his work will prove conclusively that he is a con artist and charlatan who has gone to great lengths to mask his bias against Sir Lewis, by falsely representing himself as distinct from the Lewis detractors. He skillfully represents that he is simply reporting the anti-Lewis coverage, when in fact he is validating them by not challenging them. Occasionally, his mask slips and he exposes his own direct bias, as we will show. We will begin with the tribute piece that Benson did on Hamilton, titled Challenger, Champion, Changemaker, The Real Lewis Hamilton Story. In this piece, Benson is full of praise for Sir Lewis and acknowledges the racism that he has faced in his career to date. Critically, he noted that apart from colour, Sir Lewis's background was radically different from that of others in motorsport. This is the same John Alto Benson, who in a thinly veiled attack described Sir Lewis as not normal. The fact that this white man does not recognize that it is wrong for him to determine what is normal behavior for a black man, in a predominantly white environment, is just astonishing. Furthermore, he tried to represent that he was simply reporting on the event, without expressing his personal opinion. But he routinely commented on his presumed opinion of the mindset of the other drivers at the event, and the Mercedes team, in a manner that suggested that he agreed that Sir Lewis had behaved badly. His sly dig at Sir Lewis while pretending that he wasn't digging, contrasts with the outright condemnation voiced by Martin Brundle in the same manner that Joey Zarsa openly denounced Michael Corleone, while Don Alto Benson pretended that he was mediating between the two.
It was his usual post-qualifying press conference in the Mercedes motorhome, and he said from the outset that he wasn't going to answer any questions. He felt certain sections of the media had been disrespectful of him in their coverage of an earlier news conference in the weekend, which you may have read about, and he apologised for anyone who hadn't been, but he said he wasn't going to be coming to many more of these in the future. Well, I think we were all quite surprised. It was obvious something was coming because he was sort of drumming his fingers on the table beforehand, looking around. We even overheard him say to the Mercedes media guy that he wouldn't be smiling for much longer. So he obviously knew his words were going to have an effect, and he obviously had planned them himself without any input from the team. It's going to be interesting to see how he carries on from this, because obviously he has contractual obligations. We don't know the details of those. But I can't imagine Mercedes themselves will be very happy about what's happened. And, you know, what he was doing in that press conference on Thursday was taking pictures of himself and another driver, Carlos Sainz, and posting them on Snapchat, one of the social media outlets he uses, with bunny ears and bunny faces on them. He thought that was very funny. I'm sure not everybody else did. It didn't look like Fernando Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen on either side of him thought it was very funny themselves. But again, that's Lewis. He does things, he's a law unto himself. He's a somewhat mercurial character. And we've come to expect, you know, behaviour that isn't normal for a Formula One driver. That in many ways is a good thing. In some people's opinion, what he did on Thursday was a bad thing. But it's not for me personally to say.
Another astonishing display of covert or subconscious racism, by Don Alto Benson, can be found in his article on the Dutch Grand Prix, in which he declared that he had never seen a nation get behind a driver in this manner. This begs the question of why a British journalist did not see fit to ponder the question of why he had never seen Britain get behind a British 7-time world champion, who is the most successful driver ever in the history of the sport, in the same manner that the Dutch got behind a contender. Furthermore, Alto Benson's article was full of praise for Verstappen and the Dutch, without once referencing the unsavoury booing of the British driver, that was widely reported by other media outlets around the world. We turn now to Abu Dhabi, where like all the others, the BBC and Alto Benson initially did everything they could to represent that Michael Masi had been entitled to rig the race. To this end, the BBC shamelessly engineered a video, in which they allowed the opinions of pundits, that they knew were biased towards Verstappen and against Hamilton, to override facts. Eddie Jordan challenged a decision that Masi was entitled to make, because he claimed it benefited Sir Lewis. While David Coulthard lied to validate a decision that was outside Masi's remit, and which gifted the title to Verstappen. This was a disgraceful attempt to falsely represent that both drivers benefited equally from Masi's decisions. Don Alto Benson was then brought out to top off this disingenuous ploy by falsely representing that the sporting regulations did not cover this specific situation. This is the classic propaganda ploy of giving equal weight to fact and fiction, and begs the question of why the BBC would sink this low to deny a British driver a record-breaking title.
On Sunday, Max Verstappen won the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and with it, his first Formula One World Championship.
This was the ultimate dream, and now that we have achieved that, basically for me, everything what comes next is a bonus.
What comes next has been controversy. Minutes after the race, Williams driver George Russell pressed caps lock and tweeted, "This is unacceptable." Well, this is former F1 driver David Coulthard.
A sequence of events that none of us have seen before.
It would all come down to the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi, and after qualifying, the scene was set.
The two contenders equal on points, side by side on the front row of the grid. You could not write a better plot than this.
But this story had only just begun. On the first lap, Hamilton took the lead. Then, as Verstappen tried to overtake, Hamilton left the track, cut a corner and stayed in front. After which, race director Michael Masi decided Hamilton could keep the lead. Former F1 team owner Eddie Jordan was unimpressed.
For me, Masi was wrong. He should have asked Lewis to give back the place because Lewis ran off the road and he took a fair advantage as a result.
Stopped racing, and they now followed the safety car. These laps counted, so if the safety car did 5 laps, Hamilton would be world champion. But with the final lap approaching, the race director ordered the safety car to come in and crucially decided that the lapped cars between Hamilton and Verstappen should stay there. Verstappen would need to pass all of them and Hamilton in one lap. At this point, the race director was told by Red Bull's Christian Horner, "We need one more lap." Shortly afterwards, there was a U-turn.
They reversed the decision, allowing Verstappen to be just half a second bunched up right behind Lewis Hamilton as the safety car left the track, which was with just one lap to go.
We all tried to make sense of what had happened. David Coulthard offered this explanation.
And the sporting regulations are hugely complex as well. And the sequence of events of only allowing 5 cars to overtake Lewis before the safety car came in is not something that typically has happened before.
So if David Coulthard says that, does that mean the race director was wrong? Not necessarily.
The FIA do have another rule which allows the race director to override that and make the decision he feels is correct.
Which leads us to BBC Sports F1 correspondent Andrew Benson's conclusion that the sporting regulations do not cover this specific situation.
Critically, the BBC video, which also featured one Maurice Hamilton, a renowned F1 correspondent, did not include his opinion that Masi had been wrong to allow only the 5-lapped cars between Max and Lewis to unlap themselves and restart the race on the same lap that the safety car was called in. This act by the BBC speaks volumes. This is what Maurice has said on the matter.
Welcome back to another episode of the First Corner podcast. On today's show, Maurice Hamilton joins us to discuss the events of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. What sort of precedent does this set for Formula One? Let's get into it.
Well, yeah, there was lots of things that to consider in the whole thing. And for getting on to, first of all, the safety car, the lap back marker bit that you referred to, you're absolutely right. It's his call as to whether he gets them to wave them through. But when you decide to do that, you have to let them all through because that's what the rules say. And I mean, for example, if I was Sainz and Ferrari, I'd be steaming because they were compromised. He should have actually been on Verstappen's tail and given Verstappen something to think about, which could have changed their dynamics a little bit.
That's true, because Ricciardo was in between them, wasn't he?
He was. So they were compromising him, and that then pointed towards the fact, in my mind, that what Masi was trying to do, and it's commendable enough, is he didn't want the season to end, the race, stroke the season, stroke the championship to end behind the safety car, which I understand that it's a bit dull, it's a bit limp, It's so
yeah.
So I get the fact that he wanted to keep them racing, but it seems that his subconscious desire to do that led to these incredibly almost rash decisions in that only let those 5 cars through to let Verstappen and Hamilton and bring the safety car in immediately, which the rules don't allow.
It was rash. You have to have a following lap, isn't that it? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which, of course, if he'd done that, race was over. So that's why he brought it in. I understand that. Again, it also points to the fact that he has been driven by, and if I'm uncharitable, I would say driven by Netflix. Driven by
fair point. Entertainment.
Yep. And that's wrong. I mean, yes, sure, we want entertainment, and of course we want entertainment, but in a world championship which is so vital, so important, to mess around like that was wrong.
The BBC bias against Sir Lewis is further exacerbated by the outrageous decision not to include him in the BBC Sports Personality of the Year shortlist. This decision needs to be viewed in the context that it was made just hours after the Abu Dhabi fraud, and during the period that the BBC was actively engaged in the plot to represent that he had been rightfully denied victory. With brazen shamelessness, almost a month after his failed attempt to cover up the Abu Dhabi fraud, the BBC and Don Benson suddenly declared that Masi had been wrong on the 2 counts that Maurice Hamilton had stated, but somehow hadn't been broadcast by the BBC. It is a shame that Don Benson has since received credit for this admission, and hopefully this video will set the record straight. Post Abu Dhabi, Benson and the BBC have continued with their bias against Sir Lewis. Benson again exposed his prejudice by declaring that in Melbourne, Sir Lewis had unfairly criticised his team when he said in his radio message that they had put him in a difficult position. Benson sought to represent that Sir Lewis was complaining about Mercedes favouring his British teammate. Critically, when Sir Lewis subsequently clarified his comments which completely undermined Benson's claims, the BBC, unlike other media, did not publish that clarification. In their latest attack on Sir Lewis, the BBC and Benson published an article on the forthcoming Spanish Grand Prix, which featured Sir Lewis's longtime archenemy, Fernando Alonso, mocking the Mercedes car's lack of performance. Why is the British Broadcasting Corporation attacking the greatest sportsman and racing driver Britain has ever produced? Is it because he is black, or is it because he is not normal?